I feel kind of bad. It's just 5 people just beating up an old man in the street.
He's a giant old man, though, so I think it's allowed.
Welcome back, everybody. Episode 24 of the Leonis Report with a very special guest tonight. DegenTP is here joining us. Degen, welcome.
Hi.
And JB, as always. I know we took the week off, but, little R&R as we kind of just go through life. How's things going with you, JB?
No, it's good. It's good to get back to things. Glad to have Degen here with us as well. I've been a longtime follower of his channel. I know that you're a day one player, so been following his channel since then, so happy to have him here with us.
Same, likewise. So we've been fortunate. I think we've had a couple like Justin and Friends interactions, and I know the anniversary, so it's nice to get some more one-on-one time other than just those public streams.
The funny thing is that we're like all from New England. That was one thing, like in the few chit chats that we've had. Will and I are both in Massachusetts, and then Degen, you're up in New Hampshire, right? So not too far
but
away.
I'm like right on the border. I could walk for 5 minutes and I would be in Massachusetts, so I'm pretty close.
Nice.
Absolutely awesome. Yeah, we keep prolonging the inevitable get together of we'll like do a stream together live, or even I don't know, live stream at a bar or something, just to have some real content.
They need to have one of those fan fest things over on this side instead of LA or wherever that last one was. Seems like we're all over here,
I know that for FFPE, like back in the day, they had one in New York City.
They should have one in Boston.
It's like maybe I want to say 2016 or 2017 or something like that.
Yeah, that might sound right. They'd have them all over the place. I remember that. I think I remember for FFPE, I almost went to one of their first ones because they would give away characters at those things. I don't think War of the Visions gives away that much stuff.
No.
We haven't really even had an official fan festa, which is too bad. They kind of had this small get together this summer, which was cool. Maybe a first step like post COVID, but hopefully maybe they'll do something bigger next year. Because who knows if the game, how many more years the game is going to see at this point.
It's true. I think the easiest lift for them, FanFest obviously is a huge undertaking and organization, but there's enough video game conventions that exist in the United States from different cons. Just go to one, have a small booth, make it a fan gathering. You could reserve an hour in a conference room, bring in a couple voice actors, have a Q&A. It'd be so easy to set up because the venue's already there. I wish they did more of it. I always laugh. I'm if I cosplayed as Leonis at a Final Fantasy con, no one would know who I was. The game has no exposure in that community. But anyways, we'll get on to the actual podcast of things. And for those of you that haven't seen much of Degen's content or just seen him in the Discords or really whenever, figured get some Q&A and interview and stuff with him. So, yeah, how long have you been playing? What brought you into the game? But whatever history you want to share.
I've been playing since day one, pretty much. I've been streaming it since day one, actually. I think I might be one of the main day one streamers that are still around. A lot of the other people that were streaming it have since vanished on us. Yeah, I was like I said, I was a big FFBE player before. I was also a huge Final Fantasy Tactics fan. So
weren't we all?
Yeah, so I got into I have multiple copies of the PSP version and I have the PS1 version and all that stuff from the original times. I didn't buy them later. But
literally have it.
Yeah, it was there you go. Exactly. And one of the bigger shockers, this isn't really about what I do, but those games were both heavily PvE, and then come War of the Visions and all of a sudden it's giant PvP focus and everything. So, but it's still super fun. I really, really like the game. I don't know. That's pretty much it. I still stream it every week. On launch though, I streamed it every day for
months.
Yep. Now I've kind of dwindled it down to once a week just because I
remember those marathon streams during lockdown, especially where.
Yeah, it was directly at the start of COVID lockdowns too. So what else was I going to do anyways, right?
It was great. I would spend all day in those streams hanging out. The community was definitely bigger and much more active on Twitch at that point.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people have kind of just, as people got back to work and kind of the day-to-day, they weren't able to watch streams. So the kind of the YouTube stuff kind of took more precedent, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, no doubt.
What's up at this point? What are your favorite game modes or things to do in War of the Visions at this point?
I like the stuff that has guilds working together. Like I really like working with my guild and doing any kind of that stuff. Like there's guild battle, which is like an everyday thing. That's cool and fun and everything, but I really like the more like limited ones like guild raids and Trials of Reckoning and the stuff that comes along like once in a while. I'm a little bummed that they didn't give us that one guild battle game mode thing. I don't really know what it was, but JP got it on the third anniversary and we didn't get it. I don't know. It might have been lame and maybe that's why we didn't get it, but it was just something that I was looking forward to doing with the guild. But yeah, I just love the guild content. And I think the guild and the community is one of the like strongest things keeping people in the game. And I don't know. I really like that about it.
I'm still holding out some hope that they have taken that mode back under development and that we'll kind of re-implement it maybe at the 4th anniversary with, a brand new version, brand new worldwide version of the game. I'm still crossing my fingers. It's probably complete copium/copium, whatever, but I'm hoping that they have some big plans for the 4th anniversary and kind of bringing the communities together. So we'll see.
The cool thing is we won't have to wait as long anymore to get it. Like
exactly.
That's in a couple of months now, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And actually, it's coming quick, and I wouldn't think that's copium, to be honest. I feel like they're going to come to a point where they realize that this length in the game, like they have to either innovate or they just kind of cash it in and just turn the wheel. And to be fair, that seems like that could be going that direction. But yeah, definitely hoping for that game mode or any game mode. We were all on the same train of thought. Yeah, speaking of the accelerated, worldwide or road to worldwide, has it affected anything in your gameplay? And what are your thoughts on it? And just conceptually, really just anything you want to talk about related to it. How's it affected you?
I have been a little bummed with it at the amount we've been getting stuff like shotgunned at us, and I've had to like pity a lot of it. And I have been like my thought processes during this period, I've been skipping pretty much everything non-limited. Even if it's like super meta, I'm just still skipping it because it's like something I can get later. But I still just like have a problem with not wanting to skip limited things.
Yeah.
And so like I keep going to pity on all these limited things and it's just a huge bummer and it's insanely discouraging. Like I like the game so much. So I hate to like feel that way about it, but it's just how it is, I guess. But other than that, like I don't necessarily mind too much, like as far as in-game events go and things to actually do, like Final Fantasy 5 and 6 being a little bit early, it was still fun. I don't know what else. I don't know, maybe we got some towers early and stuff like that. Maybe this guild raid. But that stuff doesn't bother me because that's not like I'm going to do it the same either way, whether it came later or it came now. It's mostly just the units, especially the limited stuff that I feel like I'm having a hard time keeping up with.
That's been the tough part is because they are almost all 100 cost units. They're just so hard to pull. If you get unlucky a few banners in a row, you're just hosed for months at that point unless you pump a bunch of money into the game. So I think you're definitely not alone. There's plenty of people out there that are kind of in those shoes, and that is kind of the problem of rapid fire 100 cost units, and it's gradually gotten more and more over the last couple of years where it's the rarity now to see something that's not 100 cost. So
yeah,
I wish they would make them a bit more special again, and certainly there have been plenty of 100 cost units that aren't at that power level this year compared to others that they could have released at 90 cost and people would not have thought twice about it.
Yeah, we've talked about this too before. Like obviously 100 cost is the new barometer for many units and their viability, and that's where I was hoping Gumi to get a little more creative with cost limited content, where if you have if people have this problem where the game is just dominated by 100 cost units, that's kind of the counteraction to it, is to give content that limits the cost, so you just don't get that same like triple 100 cost top meta teams. You have to get a little more creative. That we haven't gotten that in a while. Our last limited Guild War was not cost limited, and a lot of the quick pick stuff doesn't come often enough that you don't really get that. And so someone like Valentine Miranda comes out, and you're like for what? Like why? Like in the middle of this, it just doesn't make economic sense. So it's too bad.
I mean, I think that's something that they could even do in the PvE stuff too. Like I thought it was really great when they added all the elemental missions that you could bang out for the brutal and nightmare stuff, do it with different elements to give it a kind of a different twist or a different challenge. They could easily just make some cost restricted mode in a similar vein where you get achievements if you hit certain cost levels with your team.
That's actually an amazing idea. You should like send that to them in one of their like surveys that they say they read.
Gumi, if you're listening.
Yeah.
So it's funny.
That's actually a really good idea because it would be optional. The people that only, can manage to pull for 100 costs and they don't have the funds to go for other stuff, they don't have to do it, but it's just a little something something for those that want to take on the challenge and go for the lower cost
Right.
Yeah.
completions and stuff.
And I mean, there's plenty of like in-game materials and goodies that they could lock behind achievements or missions with those that they wouldn't be really giving away all that much. Give us maybe 20 scrolls if you're able to hit certain
Yeah.
cost level. Little stuff like that would
Or like a
incentivize
blossom to
people.
maybe make up for building those lower cost units to help build
Yes.
other stuff.
Exactly.
Stuff like that. Yeah, I totally agree, and I get what you're saying.
Well, in addition to that, are there other things you want to see changed at all in the game or added, or if you had a critique for what you'd like to see the game do differently?
Oof, that I don't really know. Like, I'm not really a game designer. I'm just a game player. So I know a lot of people try to think of stuff they want to see change in games, and I definitely would love to see things change. I just don't know what, like there's always things that could change for the better, but I'm not like able to just whip things up. I'm sure there's certain things out there, like little things like maybe 24-hour mock battles or something like that, but like major things like game modes and stuff, I like to see what they come up with. Sometimes it feels like they don't come up with a lot very often.
No.
But sometimes when they do throw something at us, like I think the legendary reliquary thing was really cool. That was such a fun, good addition if you're into PvE stuff. And I don't know, just stuff like that. Like that stuff just comes once in a rare while, and it's like, wow, that was a really cool game mode. And it's permanent. I do like permanent game modes because a lot of the stuff they have that's limited, like Tower, we see it once in a while. Sometimes we'll have like 6 months or more, I feel like, without even seeing Tower. So it's like, I don't know. I that's what I like about the legendary reliquary is that it's just always there, and I would love to see more permanent content. Selection quest was another big one. I am personally a huge slacker with selection quests, even though I'm big into PvE, but I just feel that a lot of times I don't have the resources to build a lot of MR units and stuff. Although it's been getting to a point where, especially with the free MR units we've been getting from those other, just the free ones,
right?
I have been building up most of those, if not all of them. So that helps a lot, and I could probably manage to do that stuff now. But
a lot of those are like considerably more powerful than the old MR units too. That's
yeah, absolutely.
If you have one or two of those, you can carry the quest pretty far into it.
Even the power creep of the game, just the vision cards, I know at least up 1 through 10, vastly easier now because I don't even think trust stones were a thing when those were first made. And even
there was no vision card subslots, trust stones,
right?
Transcendence. Yeah, there's so many things. 1 through 10 are pretty much very easy now. I just mean I haven't finished like some of those 15s and stuff
I haven't
out there.
either. But even those, I think, are I don't even know how much they consider like reincarnation on your MR units, which a lot of people have more access to. So like it's definitely easier should you tackle it.
Yeah, the selection quest thing that you brought up. One thing that I had thrown out before was I think that they should lean into that. And one hurdle I think for newer players is for the new player experience. You kind of hit a wall where you're trying to build up a lot of the backlog stuff, especially vision cards. Like you get your initial team, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But then as you try to build out horizontally, that's a huge problem. And a lot of players I think end up flaming out of the game at that point. I think that they should expand the selection quest to include like all of the year one vision cards and maybe even some of the year one units, stuff that like none of the top end PvP players even use, or it's stuff that they could build into that and give it out as an incentive to help out kind of mid-range players to get up to speed to the top end of the game, I think.
Yeah,
couldn't agree more. Yeah, think of those cards like Odin, right? You get that Esper, great Esper, but can you like imagine having to level up the Odin vision card somehow right now? Like that sounds awful.
Oh yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like what would you do? Like you just use your vision card shards and then like do the 2 a day, the hard quest? Like that sounds terrible.
Yeah, that's what you do. I actually play 2 accounts, and I have one account that does still continuously struggle to build a lot of those year one or earlier vision cards. Some of them it's even impossible to acquire. Like I don't even have Ifrit on that account, and I've been playing it in October it'll be 2 years. Now everyone gets that I think for free, but I started in a window where you don't. So yeah, like even some of those like you would think like almost key vision card / espers that you assume everyone probably has. Some of them no. Like there's a window where you might not have that stuff, or if you're just really unlucky. And it would be nice to just have some ease of getting, like they could update some of those shops maybe that, like the guild coins or the friend metal coins and stuff like that to pick some of that stuff up, or I don't know what they would do, but that's just one example of something they could do.
Well, even if you made an account age thing, if your account was less than 6 months old, you have a special shop and just make a shop for literally new people, or if you're under a certain level or whatever it is. But I do think that's a growing problem as the game evolves now, that the catch up for a new player to get anywhere remotely near, I don't even want to say top end of the game, I don't even want to call it that. We'll say like just competitive in general is very
Yeah.
difficult. That you're going to kill a lot of just the attrition is not going to be there. Like you're going to lose a lot of people that try to come in. So it's yeah.
I think what they've done with the new player stuff is good enough that you can build up maybe one team or maybe a team of 5 or and then maybe even start working on a second, depending on your initial roles and everything. It's just, like we said, just kind of getting that backlog of stuff so that you can then start optimizing certain vision cards or certain elemental teams and that kind of stuff that I think is definitely a problem point.
Great. Well, good. Well, we can go over a couple new talking points here in terms of content, where we have gotten a bunch of characters this week and more coming next week. We did get the very much anticipated bridal Alaya, or Alaya the Alabaster, as translated to global here. I thought that's kind of creative, a little unnecessary, but I buy it. Whatever.
Yeah, I was surprised at that name when I saw it come through, but I guess, yeah, she's in white, so.
Right. What else did you call her? I mean, yeah, I still call her bridal Alaya just because it's easier, but.
I've seen so many nicknames for her. Bridal Alaya, like Fist Alaya, Lightning Alaya, just because, I don't know, they're all out there. Obviously, those wouldn't be official names, but I've seen the community referring to her as a million different things at this point.
We'll get to one, as a community at some point, I'm sure. But yeah, I mean, I know she falls into that category of being a perma pool unit. Did you skip her then, Degen, or no?
Yeah, I did. Like I said, I have had to skip everything non-limited just because I've been completely tapped out of Viz. I have like maybe 6K paid that I'm just holding on to until some like paid thing comes out. And other than that, I'm just completely out of, because I went for Summer Glaciella and then that vision card, it took me like weeks to save up to even finish the vision card.
Yep.
So I had nothing when Alaya came along. I'd used all my tickets this morning for her. I know we still get one more tomorrow as of us recording this, but I used the ones that I had so far, all blues. So it looks like the hope is pretty down. Had to skip.
I think you made the right choice. I mean, getting the limited unit there and top tier PvP tank. So I'm sure you'll get Alaya down the road. And
yeah, that's what I'm hoping for. And I have that paid, so maybe there will be some kind of select banner or select ticket or something that I can pick up with it at some point.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I know JB, you'd pulled her. I ended up pulling her just kind of lucky. Some of those like go for that first lap, see if you get her on that 5th pull, and I did. I was really, really lucky. I didn't plan on it. But I know you were seeing some of her in Arena, probably used her in free match, I'd imagine, probably some Guild War. She is good as we thought she's going to be.
She's crazy. I can't believe they released this unit this way. I mean, the damage that she does, and like especially, I mean, the damage is one thing, but then when you see like the range that she can do, like she just walks up into the middle and, somebody's on one side of the map, somebody's on the other. It's just this, you can see how far apart they are. It's, it's crazy. She's basically just shooting out a jamming thrust, in every direction around her.
Yeah.
It's range 5, range height 2 is the crazy thing.
Insane.
I can't believe they gave it, 2 range heights. So, and, the damage is you can't really block it with resistances like we have been towards other fist units. She gets like the penetration on there, so she's very, very good.
It's awful. I was actually in the process of making a video right now of why I hate Bridal Alaya. I hate that 40 strike res pen on that ability. In addition to not only being really good in terms of what you mentioned, the height flexibility, the range, the select 3, the unit scaling resistance as opposed to area resistance, but the strike res pen, I feel like was such a mistake in terms of like power, like game balance, where we knew Pierce and Strike was always pretty much like mitigatable. Like you could just throw in some resistance and be okay. And by giving her that 40 strike res pen, you have implicitly like nerfed every other strike unit in the game because they can't even come close to ever reaching that 40. The most they get is that 10 on the Truststone passive. So obviously we see Gumi coming out with characters like Soul and Squall has some unique mechanics, and all these vision cards with 20% strike res, and every single one that comes out, they're trying to like, find a way to counter Bridal Alaya finally, but as they do so, they just kind of hammer away at every other strike unit in the process.
I don't understand why they had to go there, because they built up that whole strike meta, with Full Metal Alchemist, and we had all those great strike units, great cards. Those teams were running great for a while. Then they put out a bunch of units that hard countered that. You had a bunch of, basically every unit after that had a bunch of strike resistance. Then they added a bunch of cards and Espers that also do that. And then finally we got Raph, who, with the Great Demon, just completely shuts down strike as we knew it. So why go immediately back to strike at that point? I don't understand, and really power creep that. They could have gone into magic, or we haven't seen really any big magic meta in a while.
No.
That's where they have eventually gotten to get rid of the Alaya problem
Right.
with
Oh yeah,
Soul.
With Soul.
true.
Yeah. Yeah. And not even talking about her buff. I'm still like salty that her buff has like 5 effects on it. That's just outrageous to me. And they're all really good ones. Like each one of those buffs individually would be like a satisfactory buff on any other unit in terms of like the 30 AoE res. It's also courage, hate down when you fall below a certain percent. It's 20% physical damage up. I'm forgetting another slash res. Like it's crazy. It's just it's insane. Like it's too much.
Re-raise removal.
Re-raise removal. Yeah, to teammates. To teammates. Re-raise removal. It's stupid. Absolutely
Yes,
busted. Like and there's no counterplay. Like how would you go against playing against her? Do you have any like strategies of like what you'd recommend?
So I've already been working a ton on this. I'm going to be putting on a video pretty soon, just purely about how to play against this unit and what we have available to us to at least. I don't think there's any stopping her. Like you can contain her, you can hard counter with an element, Earth, but even that is like she does crazy damage against Earth.
Yep.
Unit resistance, and to a lesser extent still is strike resistance. She doesn't cut through all of it. That's really your only way, other than lightning resistance. So.
I know me personally, I'm trying to change the way I think about my team grouping up as well. I know she still has a stupidly large, AoE that she can hit you from, but we've gotten so like in this mindset of characters like moving together that she just doesn't care about that. She'll just blast all three of you, and we kind of saw that already with Edward Elric. Like this isn't new to us, but he obviously didn't, have the same impact that she does. And so I think I'm trying to think more outside the box in terms of spacing my units apart and what that does for getting her out of position. And our ranged units now a thing in terms of like trying to chip her away from afar, which I think is a strategy. But yeah, there really isn't any solid way to do it.
The Summer Glaciella actually does a great job with the 40% damage cut. I mean, I've fought some water teams with like Ferris and Irene, or it's even actually better if you have one of the ice bros in there, because they're really strike resistant. But that the 40% shield or aura just really does a great job at, even though it's a water unit. That's one thing I think that Gumi has been doing recently, is that making you think a little bit differently about the like kind of the natural elemental counter.
Yep.
Where some of the units they work still really well against lightning into water, for example, or vice versa. So
No, couldn't agree more. So alongside Alaya is her vision card that's also coming out. And this one is one that we've been looking forward to. It is another area resist vision card, which I know it's kind of like 2 weeks in a row. We had Summer Glassy first with that same AoE res, and there's seemingly some overlap with that benefit here. But I know we looked at this a while ago when we first saw her on JP. Now that we've got some present perspective on things and that game balance changes, is this card still a good one for you, JB? Like, how does this, and even Degen, does this fare well considering the Summer Glassy card as well?
I think that if you're looking at it purely from the fist perspective, like the fist job, at this point, this is like the third area resist card that we have for that team. If you include, I think it's East of Horn, and then the Summer Glassy card that we just got. So from that standpoint, if you got the Glassy card and you're just playing fist teams only, you can probably pass on this card and then maybe hope to get it later. I think the benefits of this card is going to come from maybe a spear group that you want to throw in there, or the glove group especially.
Yep.
Those are two other very developed jobs at this point in terms of cards. So that allows you to kind of mix new teams in with the fist to maybe form some new teams. But spear is one that actually was already mixing very well with the fist group with the Full Metal Alchemist card.
Yep.
So I think that is probably the most compelling reason. So you get the agility, unit resistance, and now area resistance for fist and spear teams together, which is really strong.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I have all the same thoughts. And you said it perfectly. I do love the glove group as well. The Pierce energy, obviously, right there. It's just another card to form a different variety of teams. I don't think it's necessarily better or worse. I think I do prefer the Summer Glassy card, just speaking of the effects, but this is still an exceptional card and does a lot of good things for lightning, just if you're still thinking mono lightning as well, for sure.
I think the one other selling point of this card is specifically for Alaya or whoever is going to hold it. They get pretty nice accuracy bump there with the luck and then the bestowed accuracy. It's going to be about 20 to 25 accuracy boost.
Yep.
So
Definitely substantial. We had Dark Siren come out, easily confused with Dark Shiva, as I do frequently. Both Esper and Vision card. We'll actually start with the Vision card first, and this is the one where, again, it's a dual element. It's both water and earth, which is kind of new here that we haven't seen. I think they're probably going from the angle that you put this on a water team and have like an earth unit in there to help counterplay people bringing lightning into it. That seems to be a common theme in a lot of these dual element vision cards. But water is just eating really good with these. This is another water one. Did either of you feel a certain way about pulling this, or what it does for game balance, just conceptually?
And for me, it looks really good, but again, I'm not pulling for like non. Especially to me, one of the most dangerous things to get into is trying to pull a Dark Esper. So I skipped, but I definitely want to get this. So just hoping for it later.
I couldn't agree more.
I love these, any vision card that has the area resistance or unit resistance bestowed effect that you can stack up.
Yep.
So that's one great thing about this card. It's got the 4 agility on. Like the card itself is like no complaints about it, but I agree. I think a lot of people were in Degen shoes. They had to probably skip over this one and hope to grab it later, just because Alaya came the same week, and it was pretty tall task to pull both of them.
In the other road to worldwide, I think this is one of the conversation things that I don't see more people talking about. Everyone focuses on the units. I don't think enough people are mad about missing out on some of these Dark Espers and Dark Vision cards, because these do upset some game balance potentially with what it does for element overlap. And to like not be able to pull these potentially, or to have to spend as much as you do and lose out on that, I think has like more trickle down effects than missing out on a character, where we've so often seen these vision cards have like longer shelf lives than the characters do sometimes, that if you have to just pass now like 3 Dark Espers in a row, like that's a tough thing to catch up on sometime in the future.
Yep, definitely.
And I know at least just one thing for this card in particular. I actually don't love this card, and let me just kind of break out why. I don't, from the way I introduced it, that it's a card for people running water that want to throw in an earth unit to like, trap some lightning teams. I actually don't like that for this most. I like this most for earth teams, quite frankly, like mono earth. Right now for earth teams, their agility vision card is that Eleficaris vision card, which is only 8% agility. They do technically have the Halloween limited one, but not everyone has that, obviously. And so this is kind of a nice benefit to earth, that they now have a 15% agility card, where they are obviously very like physical heavy, at least with like Bradley, and you can make a cast of characters with rule gears, Zazan, and yada yada. And the strike res here too, considering what the meta is, I like this just from a straight earth perspective, not even including water.
The card itself isn't why people may have skipped on it. It's definitely the crunch and the cost of it.
100%. And on the note, the Esper, no slouch either. This one's a little more of like a off the beaten path, because I know when you look at the board optimally, a lot of people would assume, water Esper, which we wanted. We finally got one. We're getting Sog and Prince again soon, so Gumi's doing some good things. But I like that they have, another accuracy Esper here for a, it's technically a magic user, but I like having access to that. But I think more underratedly is that 5 unit resistance. I think it's a nice little power creep adjustment. But this nice long branch here that has the reaction block rate and the debuff effect weakening, where when you consider just putting it on certain kinds of tanks as well with that debuff effect weakening in addition to the reaction block rate, I know not a lot of tanks have that block rate in their kit, so that might be something that they miss out on. And the weakening low-key is actually like a really powerful way for tanks to take less damage, obviously, where
you can think about like Edward Elric. He's got the crazy 45 defense break, so 20%, that's going to move that to 36. 36 defense break. So pretty powerful, even if you just have the 20. But some of the tanks now have access to more.
Right. The Summer Glass Yellow card has it on it, so that stacks with it. So I like that a lot for that reason. And same concept for the accuracy. Not many tanks are accurate. So this is like an underratedly decent tank Esper, considering it's also 18 agility. I think a lot of people would look at this and see the water attack and probably just, magic attack. I think it's a magic Esper, but I think it's more than that. So we're also getting Shalze this week as well, a new fire mage. I know a lot of people have been intrigued by her given the kit in terms of what she does for sustain and just like re-raise, and another magic fire unit, which is, you got oh goodness, Kefka, then Roy, and now her, and now Soul. Like, fire is eating good from a magic perspective. Have either of you guys looked into her kit at all, or are really hyped to get her, or looking for it down the pipeline?
I personally haven't. Skipping everything non-limited, and to me that also means not really paying attention to them, even though I'm sure they'll be crushing me soon enough. But I just don't want to get like in my head that like, oh, I really need this character. Just gonna, I'll get her sometime.
I think that she's like a nice to have, like a, you know, she's going to be a 70 cost that you'll be able to use, but I don't think it's like I said, it's not a must have. I
I
think
have seen
especially
people throwing
when
around out there that she is a must have in those soul teams. I don't know how true that is. You guys probably know better than most, but like I've seen that thrown
Yeah,
around quite a bit.
so that's what I was just going to say, that she is a devout and like she has aged well now that we know about Saul, and he can obviously they work from the job and the element perspective there in terms of cards synergy and things. But personally, I don't think that you like Saul can sustain the team already like through healing through his active abilities. That I'm not sure that you need like another healer slash dedicated support for that team. I think it could work and I think it could be good for sure, but I don't think it's needed. Like I think you could double bruiser, you could go tank up front. You know, there's other options. I would say.
I would agree with that. I know everyone gets really intrigued by seeing units that have like some support capabilities. So she does have that full life access. She's got that 30% light and dark res as well as the protect for 4 turns and the restore AP upon critical hit. There's like a lot of good support things in her kit. I just don't know if I don't like to Degen's point. I haven't really looked a lot at her because I wasn't really planning on pulling her for that same reason. And although she does seem strong for fire, at least as that like pseudo support unit, I also think it's obviously a little specific towards certain elements with that light and dark res only. There's a lot to like about her. She's honestly a really good 70 cost unit, being frank. But I don't know. I don't think she's going to be game breaking by any stretch of the imagination.
Whenever you're building a team that has either mono element or is leaning too heavily into one element, that's going to make you weaker against, you know, the water counter, which a lot of people did pull for Glassy, and they're going to be looking to run those teams into any fire they see. So I know for me, I would probably be looking to branch out into another element to kind of cover Saul's weakness. Now, you know, at least from an elemental perspective, but I think that there's many ways to skin a cat. I think that she is very good and she can be good with Saul. I don't think that she's mandatory.
No, definitely not. Definitely. And if you're pulling for Saul, it's most likely because you're trying to hard counter strike teams. And I honestly don't think we've observed that. I keep saying that every week. I don't think we've seen the strike meta here in Global that JP saw in terms of a lot of guilds hard walling it. I don't think you see it a ton in like quick pick. You see it around. It's a
Yeah.
thing. It's definitely a threat. But to the extent that like Gumi went into this whole like meta focus on preventing strike, we haven't observed that. So I don't think we it's a need for us. I think it's a want.
Yeah. In my range of like guild battles and even arena and stuff, I've seen it around, but like you said, I've never seen it as like a huge issue. Like, it's around, but it's
Right.
I think the foresights for global changed our path a bit, where a lot of people saw Bradley as the best unit from Full Metal Alchemist, and I think that there was probably more Bradleys, percentage wise in global than there were Fist teams.
Makes sense. And that makes sense economically. It's much cheaper to invest in one unit than go for three, particularly if you missed out on Perrine. Because back when Perrine was released, we didn't know about Full Metal. So if you passed on her, you had a lot of catch up to do. But it's unfortunate because Strike was, I think, like just as prevalent, if not more prevalent, than Bradley and JP. That was like a hard thing for a long time. We do have some 140s that we got not only last week, but this week. And namely, I know last week we got Leela the Bold and Lemeray. I know a while back, JB and I covered extensively the 140 on Leela the Bold, and we still like this. I like that Select 2. I think it's a good upgrade for her. Obviously, keeps her current with what we're seeing from a lot of units, particularly in the current meta with the tanks that decrease healing power of 70. Very, very strong, at least above average from a reduction perspective. I do think she's a worthy like antler candidate. I could see her coming back to prominence where she does some things here like dispelling protect. Like for Sephiroth, that's only on the soldier sub job, so you can kind of eliminate that from him and allow Leela to do that job instead. And she benefits from that slash res pen to the same degree that he does in many instances. Yeah, this is a great upgrade.
She can stand up decently well against Alaya as well, just because she did get a bump in her strike resistance, which was already very good, and she is on that great demon card, so it's not difficult to get her up, into 60-70% strike resistance or higher. So
Absolutely. And Lemeray is a little under the radar. That healing power 15 is nice. The defense is nice. The haste ability here, she gets a decreased chance of being targeted, which I do think is a legitimate form of survivability for her, that as long as she's hasted, she bumps down on the priority level. But I don't remember many times where my Lemeray was getting caught out and killed before the other teams because of the nature of that team and how she haste and quickens people. There's typically people in front of her that I don't remember people sniping her in the middle of a battle when I didn't really expect it. So it's a good one on paper, but I don't have high hopes.
I think the best thing is just that it gets another use. That's really
yes, thank you for
it's really the only. Other than that, it's really whatever kind of upgrade. Degen, you were a fan of Bold Leela. Do you ever use that unit?
I actually use her a lot in PvE. I don't think I've ever used her in PvP. Even
Really?
though I've seen it a lot. Yeah, but I do use her in like a lot of my PvE stuff. I don't know. I generally tend to just like get one team for PvP and just run with it for way too long, probably. And she just never made it in. Like I've always had her built and everything. I may have used her when she was new, like for I don't know, like a month or two. I can't remember though. I don't remember anything specific, but I use her all the time. She's definitely in my like 5-man dark squad.
She's definitely solid for PvE. I mean, she's got the slash imperil and pretty high damage too.
Yeah. Did you not, Degen, did you not ever use her like when Joker came out or anything? I remember that was a big thing on her release.
Well, that was when she first came out. So yeah, I may have used her then because she came out, I think, right after Joker, right? Or around that same time.
Yeah, it was between Joker and Dark Fina, yeah.
Yeah, so I probably used her then, but I don't specifically remember. That was so long ago, I can't remember what was going on. And
to be fair, it has been a while.
In the battles then. Yeah, that was over a year ago. That was like the beginning of last summer, I think.
Yeah, just after second anniversary.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, we have some other 140 upgrades here, not nearly as noteworthy, but still just something that like bring some visibility to. Of this group, I'll kind of hard focus on the Well here because I think she's probably the one that's got the most upside here in terms of what she's getting. She's getting 10% agility, so a nice little power creep bump for her agility values. She's getting 15 unit res, which is obviously skewing more and more popularly now, where we kind of had that AoE meta, and now we're going to kind of like a unit meta. But her main buff here, that evocation like giant diamond, is getting lightning res of 25% and dark res of 25%. So you talk about like living in the moment and countering some of those Alaya or even just dark teams in general. You get that 15 unit res. That buff is another 25 unit res. So, you're talking about what, 40 unit res overnight for her in addition to the lightning and dark res. I think that's a sizable buff that I think a lot of people could actually work with.
Plus her being like magic damage, which is especially a lot of single target magic damage. It's definitely one way you can get at Alaya. I think they purely catered her upgrades towards more of an anti-Alaya character.
I'd agree with that.
I think she would work decently in that role.
Yeah. And I don't have a ton to say about the rest of these characters. I can't imagine either of you have used Uldoa, Corwell, or, oh my god, I forgot his name.
Baruch.
Thank you. Varush. And I'm a big Varush supporter too, just because I had high hopes during the Elena meta. But these are all okay. They're not the worst, but these characters are just so far behind. I don't think this does anything for any of them. Uldo is getting a unit in peril, which I actually think is a good buff for the Drain Force Uldoas, where I know Ketone has a unit res down that she typically opens. So she'll like imperil the unit res, then do Hazard, or what's it called? Drain Force. And Uldoa now doing that same thing, but I mean, this character's whatever. And then Corwell's whatever, and Varush is... It's a nice upgrade, but what can we say?
I mean, these three units haven't ever seen much use in PvP. Corwell, like, he can be like a decent guild raid unit. He has like a triple hit. I mean, he gets that unit resistance break there you can see on that skill, but I'm not too excited about these three.
No, none of them are getting my antlers, let's put it that way.
Right, yeah.
Definitely.
And then we also have some +6 weapons, and one of them being the Tiger Fangs, which I actually do like this weapon still a lot. This is essentially getting the stat buffs that they normally do, but the big upgrade here is that AoE res of 10 is being extended from 3 turns to 4, which I actually like a lot. I think it's a nice easy way for a lot of these strike damage dealers to get some AoE res if they don't normally have access. So I think it's a smart upgrade for it.
I definitely have used this one a couple times, especially on snow. I haven't used it as much on some of the recent strike units just because they have their own fists that are, I think, a little bit better, but I like it. I'll probably upgrade this one.
Yep, no, that's exactly it. The unique weapons have made this a tough sell. And then I think this is the Punisher Mace. This one is kind of one of those run-of-the-mill upgrades. It's getting some magic attack here. We've seen these with Kuro Kasami last week and a couple other weapons. I don't know if we have much to talk about there, but the Jeweled Belt, I've never seen this one actually used effectively. It's an all-element attack of 15, and it's instead of after being removed after 2 hits, it's removed after 3 hits. I don't think this is all that great. I mean, 15 mod is kind of paltry when you consider what you equip on someone. I guess I could see it. I don't even know where I could see it, but defense debuff rev, 30% is not high enough to put a dent unless a character has it innately.
This is like a PvE item for me.
Yeah.
It's kind of what I
I
was
think
thinking
this is a
about.
big time PvE item
Yeah,
when you're trying to squeeze out top scores and stuff, max damage and that kind of thing.
The problem is that this upgrade isn't needed as a, you know, from a PvE perspective.
Not at all. So definitely passable.
Yeah, I'm not going to use my crafting metals on this one.
It's funny you said that. I stopped myself because I was going to go down the PvE route, and then I had that same thought that the 3 hits doesn't really do anything to change this. You're still getting the 15 element res in most instances, or element attack. I'm sorry. Yeah. I wish we were a little more hopeful about some of these 140s and +6. Certainly appreciate Gumi putting them in. To be fair, I still love the system. For people that don't have all the units, this is an exceptional way to keep, you know, units fresh and make your investment still go longer for you if you're not, you know, meta chasing. So props for that.
I mean, with how rare the antlers are, kind of glad that there's not a ton of good ones this week, just to kind of give myself a chance to take a breath and catch up.
That's a good point.
So.
Actually, on that topic, I didn't realize this on the selection quest, because Degen, I'm also catching up on mine. I have not done anything above level 10 for, I think, like water, ice, and fire, and those are some of the more recent ones. And apparently on those new stages where you get the mind spheres, there's a couple antlers in there. So I was like way behind on antlers, and someone mentioned that, so I've been doing selection quests for the antlers this week.
I need to look into that too then.
Yeah.
I think it's the shared stage where you can farm the mind spheres to reincarnate.
Okay. Yep.
So far they released 3 of those, which covers 6 elements. So I want to say you could have gotten up to 6 antlers so far.
That makes sense that antlers are in there because that's their transcendence stuff.
Yep. Yeah, obviously don't have to use it on on what's her name if you don't want to, but
exactly. But you can.
All right. Well, then one of the other big things announced this week is the guild raids, where, you know, this is, I think, like one of the most creative places that people that are smart and well-versed in the PvE can really shine. I think it's one of the best stages where people have to think on their feet. And we do have some of that JP foresight where you can kind of get an idea of some teams, but no matter what, at the end of the day, it still takes an incredible amount of like fine-tuning individually speaking. And I know I'm sitting with two of the best in that regard. DJ, are you still looking forward to guild raids at all? Is that still content you really appreciate?
Yeah, I still really like guild raids. I think it's a lot of fun. I love that it doesn't cost like energy or anything to test, and you can just literally run it all day. You can practice, and you know, for me, it's a big like camaraderie builder, like within the guild and everything like that. And I really like guild raids a lot, and so I'll never argue with one of those popping up. Maybe if we had one like every week, it would get a bit much, but they're spaced out pretty well to where it still stays fun.
This is actually one of the quickest we've had one. I mean,
that is very true.
I feel like we had one maybe, I want to say like 2 months ago, maybe a little bit less.
Yep.
Yeah.
So this one it's a little bit earlier than expected, I think, maybe like a month earlier or so. But I 100% agree. I love the community aspect that you can strategize with your guildmates, try to improve scores. I'd kind of taken it a step further and wanted to share what I knew like on my channel and made videos about it. And yeah, I really kind of geeked out from the beginning on this mode. And
your videos on guild raid stuff has helped me and my guild so much. And we come in like top 10 a lot of the times and stuff too. So maybe we partially have you to thank for that with your guides and your spreadsheets and graphics and all that.
I mean, that's kind of what I was hoping for, is people would kind of take the challenge, because I think that it's a fun thing to share with your guild, and just wanted to pass it on.
I couldn't agree more. And we'll talk about this more in depth in a second, but I'm just kind of giving a visual as to what you have currently for the presentation, where, like you make these excellent cheat sheets talking about what the unique map effects are, highlighting some of the bosses, what weaknesses are.
So actually, go back to the damage cap one, the second one.
Yeah.
So this one, I don't know if there's a mistake in the notices, but I have this what they had written in the notices, that this is what the damage cap increases are going to be. On the JP side, though, pierce damage was also increased, I think 5 or 10,000, which was not mentioned in the notices. So
I could see this being just like a copy paste from our last one, because this looks exactly like we had on the last one. So maybe it's just not updated, but maybe they're also changing it for us. Who knows?
Yeah, we'll only be able to tell on Wednesday once it drops, but I just wanted to mention that for folks out there in case this ends up being wrong.
Good call out. And I'm not going to go through it quite just yet. I want to ask a couple questions first, just before we dive into it. But I am curious, DJ, and this is one more for you, because I know JB and you've talked about this. Do you have any specific like we'll say goals when it comes to guild raid? Like, do you still try to chase like a top score? Do you still have like a goal with it? Like, is there a motivation per se?
In the original ones, like I would just try to aim for like over 1 million, which is fairly easy to do, but like sometimes you might not have like a full 3 elements that can do it or something, depending on what the options were. But that was like in the older ones. Now it's much easier to get it. Now you can like auto over 1 million probably if you have the right setup. I don't ever go for top scores, no, because that's way too overwhelming for me. And I always just assume that everyone else, all the top score people are scoring like hundreds of thousands more than me. So I don't want to like hurt myself. But I definitely try to just get as high as I can. Like, so for me, it's more of like a competition maybe within my guild, because you can see everyone scores and you can see your guild leaderboard where every single person is.
Yep.
So in there, I'm like, all right, well, I don't want to be like a total mooch, so I want to be like top 5 or at least top 10 within my guild. But I'm never going for like top number 1 of world. That's, I think JB could pull that off, but that's a little above my pay grade, I think. But I definitely try to get as high as possible.
I think you had already once, didn't you, JB?
I have done it before, yeah.
Yeah.
Not in the recent ones, but the tough thing about now is that you mentioned like the min-maxing at the top. It now does require reincarnation.
Yep, that's
not
true.
only of the MR units, which are, like you said, a little bit more accessible, but UR units. And some of those UR units aren't ones that you would really use on a day-to-day basis. You think about your Summer Liliths out there potentially, or your Lucias, or some of these units that, sure, they're fine, but because they have those 4-hit attacks, they're more going to be primed for wanting to reincarnate to get the full, damage cap out of them. So that has really kind of turned me off a little bit to some of it, but we'll see. I still try to get as much as I can.
Yeah,
I'm the same.
I was just gonna say, like, the cool thing is like just working with the guild, getting as high as you can. You might not get top. Like if you want to get the top spot, like it's actually insane. But you're amazing if you do that. Like those people that get those top spots are like god tier. But just being able to say like your guild is top 10 or whatever, you get a little bit of like extra Viz reward, I think, in the end, or whatever the prizes are. I can't remember off the top of my head. It's just a cool little thing to work for, I guess. I don't know.
I know you had one of the better guild raid players in your guild for a while, Uno Time, who was a top scorer.
Yeah, he's still around in the community in the Discord and stuff, but unfortunately he no longer plays War of the Visions. But yeah, he was definitely up there. He loved the content.
Do you remember, do you have like a favorite like tip or a trick that you typically lean into, like something you thought was kind of creative that maybe not your average player knows about?
For me personally, not so much. Like I think for Trials of Reckoning, there's a lot of stuff like that, but for guild raids, I feel like for me, I just like look for the most multi-hits I can get who also might have debuffs like unit attack, resist down, or defense down and stuff like that. And it wildly differs between elements. And also now that it's a little bit different where like magic has a higher damage cap and strike has a higher damage cap. So that does change the strategy quite a bit. But I don't think I have like a full on like secret trick or anything like that. Like not that I can think of off the top of my head.
Do you have any, JB, that you've leveraged that you're like, wow, it's really creative, and like pat yourself on the back?
I don't know how much secret sauce I want to give away, but I would say for people to really dive into the Esper boards for damage optimization, like really the difference between like a good score and a great score all comes down to the optimization, not only of your turn orders and your CT management, but also of actually just how much actually being able to cap the damage. And that's all your equipment choices, your Esper choices, your card choices, and just running those through the grinder to see what's going to be the most damage per run. And that is, like you mentioned, Degen, that I think that is one of the cooler things about guild raid is you can just sit there for a couple hours and bang away at it if you have the time.
Yep.
Unlike mock battle, which is famously only open from
weird hours in the morning.
Businessman's hours when everybody's working. So
yeah,
I know one, and this is very vague, so I don't think I'm giving away any sauce, and it's not always applicable. But I remember there was a guild raid a couple whatever ago that one of the strategies was you'd bring in 5 characters, right? But you would intentionally have one of those characters use, it was like an apparel at that time, but you would group them next to the boss and you would intentionally kill them after they use like their limit break, because if you kill them they no longer count toward the turn order. And I remember just being like Like, what? You mean intentionally kill one of your 5 units and just like have them do that one imperil? That's their one job. You need them for nothing else to suck up the turn order. So you like intentionally kill them in an AoE with the team and you get the other 4. It doesn't happen very often, but I remember that being such a cool thing to see.
I mean, I've even seen some runs where they're killing 2 or 3 units so that, you know, the other
Wow.
units can get 5 turns in the battle instead of 4.
Yep.
So yeah, that's definitely you know, a good tip there.
Yeah. Again, very vague. I don't think I'm giving away any secrets yet, but we'll see you can utilize it. Okay, so we're not going to spend a ton of time on this, but bringing just some visibility toward what we're expecting. We obviously have the normal 5 guild raid bosses, and we'll look at them real quickly. You know, one of them being Fenrir here, ice-oriented unit. You know, you obviously think fire. There is that magic weakness there, and you're getting the extra magic damage cap. So, you know, your Roy Mustangs, your Kefkas, maybe Shalze this week being a participant. I couldn't say for certain, but anything come to mind when you see this, either of you?
So definitely fire magic is the way to go. He can be slowed, so there's plenty of units within fire that can do that. The surprising thing here is that he's only 10% weak to fire, so might be a little bit hard to cap for non-magic units, maybe especially early on.
Would you consider Rain with the fire imperil, or
At least recently for fire, the best runs have been using Delita because he has the 48% fire imperil.
good call? Yep.
I'm not sure about this one, but I would assume it's probably still going to be him, at least for the top scores. But Rain is definitely another good choice because his imperil is a 2-hitter too. So
Right. Then the next one here, we have the White Dragon, the light-oriented one. Really interesting seeing the slash resistance being negative here, where obviously guild rates kind of went away from that for a while, obviously giving the incentives toward those damage cap limits to magic and strike, and that's still the case here, obviously that negative weakness to light here. Anything pop out other than that, just looking from a weakness perspective here?
I'll say one quick thing. I know that I think that I want to say so obviously this is meant for dark units here that you want to bring in your dark team with that 40% weakness there. But the one interesting thing here is that every other element is at a 60% resistance, which is higher than we normally see on most other bosses. So Gumi is definitely fine-tuning this so that basically really penalizing you if you try to bring anyone other than. I think that's specifically because in the last light boss, I think that fire actually took it down against Iron Giant.
Oh, really?
Last one, so. That's they're trying to make sure you take your dark team here and get your high score there. So
you mean the top scorer was a fire guy?
Yeah,
like,
for the
wow, I didn't even notice that. That's crazy. Wow. I had no idea.
Well, and I would have to think that Wrath influences that and incentivizes that, where you talk about she naturally has at least the smaller imperils, the defensive spirit, but that elemental extension I think would be a big part of this for keeping that damage cap, in addition to the multi-hit that she has. So obviously being a magic scaling unit as well, it seems right down the middle. That I think she's kind of aligned perfectly to enable exactly what you're talking about with prioritizing the dark team.
Well, I'm hoping that the pierce damage will be increased too, like it was for JP, because obviously that gives us access to summer shadow or winter shadow links as well. She's actually a very good guild raid unit. She has that large 38% imperil too.
Good point. Moving along here too, we have Dark Ramu, and this one is more of a missile weakness here, obviously having that earth negative as well. I do think this is really nice map here when you look at the topography, that it's basically just like open flat land of zeros and ones and everyone's relatively close. I think this one's going to be a really interesting like just setup in terms of how you get the battle going, where you don't need to worry about a lot of units moving on certain paths. They're going like through random barriers.
I think that's a good point because on a lot of the bosses you have to kind of play around with the placement or maybe equip additional mobility on some units so that they can kind of get in range on their first turn. But this one, any unit you put out there is going to easily be able to attack them on turn one. So it's nice not to even have to worry about that level of setup.
I feel kind of bad. It's just 5 people just beating up an old man in the street.
He's a giant old man, though, so I think it's allowed.
I'm excited to bring Summer Lilith into this one with that missile resistance.
Summer Lilith. I'm getting them all mixed up now.
She's the Earth missile.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Cool.
Oh, no wonder you got her paired here front and center on the screen. I was gonna make a joke about that, but I'm like, there's a good reason why she's there.
She is one of my favorite units.
Me too. Out of all the female characters, she's among mine. So Sheraton, huh, guys? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we'll obviously keep moving along. Yeah, Sheraton, same idea. Much lower, and I'm just comparing here, much lower negative resistance to that wind, which I think is kind of interesting, only going for the -15. The missile, obviously, you mentioned Lucia earlier. That quad shot seems to be right down the middle here, kind of queued up. I think it's also interesting the agility here is a smidge higher. I know Fenrir is at 85. I think Sheraton's the fastest so far at 87, which
Yeah.
I'm intrigued to see that. Because I know that's one of the big strategies too, is that you typically want to have all your units like just below the boss agility so that you can allow the boss to move first. And that way you don't get your turn order disrupted, whereas opposed if you were faster than the boss, you'd get into some issues. So 87 is kind of interesting that you can make your units a little bit faster here. Anything
Yeah,
pop off the screen to either of you guys?
these are the kind of thing that I just have to get in there. Like just looking at this without having the thing in front of me, I just am not as like good with it.
I mean, this is where I become like a complete geek with the game, where I can just look at this and already start picturing what I'm going to do. But what I was going to say is that one thing that I have added with these, you notice in the kind of the stats rundown there, the C evade or crit evade total there. That's one thing that I've added into this version 5. I calculated out the crit evasion of the bosses, because that's actually one of the big, damage optimization things for these, is making sure that you crit every single time on every hit, and that can be like really annoying if you have that perfect run nailed down and you miss a crit. Well, now you can see exactly what crit level you need to actually achieve to crit every time. So 174% in this case you'd need to get to guarantee it.
That's honestly a huge value add. That means a lot.
Yeah,
I've made videos. It's a very tough because, like I've said, it's typically like the last calculation you do in like making your team. You typically prioritize a bunch of different things first in terms of like attack value and penetration and agility and turn order. And finally, when you get through all the priorities, you finally get down to like crit rate. And it's like one of the most important things, but so easily forgotten because I think it's just like fatigue. By the time you get there, like I don't even want to think about this anymore. Like just run it.
Well, the tough part is the game doesn't give you the value of what your dexterity is kind of contributing to your total crit rate.
Yep.
Which you have the crit modifier, but then you have your dex, and how do you figure that out? So you definitely have to go to external tools to figure it out, but they're out there if you want to find them.
Yeah, we've talked about that too. Gumi for listening, which I know Justin is actually. Shout out to Justin if you're watching. Justin does watch some of these podcasts. He's pointed out things we've brought up before alongside him. They have to change this in the menu screen. Please convert the dexterity values and the luck values and all those hidden stats that are part of these equations. If you give us a crit rate stat, do the full crit rate, not just the like crit rate stat itself. It's one of the most misleading things in the game, and I absolutely hate that they don't bring the visibility to it 3.5 years into the game at this point. And then finally, we'll move on to the last one here, which is the Dark Ifrit. And again, back to that negative 40% on the water. This skews more toward the slash, which not terribly surprising, just given what water's kind of come out with as of late, I guess you could say. But I don't think anything else really stands out other than some of the topography here, where this map is a little bit different from some of the others. Obviously, when you consider the right side of this map, you really are only limited to like a height difference of 1. You're going from 4 to 5. But this is an interesting map from the perspective that you do have a unit potentially starting here on that height of 2, and if that changes anything in terms of range heights. But I don't think I really noticed much here.
No, I mean, a lot of the water units do have extra mobility, so it shouldn't be too hard for them to get into range.
I feel like a lot of them not only have extra mobility, but a lot of their like good guild rate abilities, at least the ones you want to open the fight with, have a pretty good range on them. A lot of them are LBs and stuff that will like imperil or whatever.
Absolutely.
So I think they'll have no problem here.
One other thing I wanted to mention about this guild raid is that we do have the ability now to toggle the affinity in game.
Huge.
So
Yep.
yeah, so that was always one problem with kind of setting up your team, is that if you had affinity between the units, it would boost their agility, and if you're trying to get lost, that could cause some headaches. So we do have the ability to toggle that off now, so that can be something that you can utilize if you need it.
I
I
think that's
completely forgot about that too. I didn't even
super
remember that,
valuable.
but that is actually super good news. Came in handy in the last trial, and it's going to come in handy here. I can already tell.
There you go.
It's you don't get to use it often enough just because the content doesn't allow itself,
Yeah.
frequency wise. But good stuff. Well, yeah. So we got the guild rates. Obviously, we're all looking forward to it. I am intrigued to always see the newest strats. I love that part of the theory crafting of the game to see what people come up with. It's not my strong point by any means. I think there's a lot that auto PvP doesn't lend itself to this, where you have to really know CT better more than anything, and positioning and what turn order does. It's a good learning opportunity no matter what. So I really appreciate it when it does come around. Now we are getting to the third section here. We're going to talk a little bit about Irvine and Soul now that we have a bunch of data and replays and everything. Irvine was that third unit as part of the Final Fantasy VIII collab that a lot of people were kind of surprised and looking forward to, but I don't know if he delivered yet. Have you guys looked a lot at him at all? I mean, he's a limited unit. He's the missile unit right after Melnia that we haven't had a missile unit in a little bit of a while here. Contextually speaking, any thoughts on Irvine that you've seen?
I haven't looked into him at all, to be honest.
I've looked at him a little bit. I mean, I've looked at his stats. I've looked at a little bit of his PvP matches that JP's players have posted. I don't know. I'm not super impressed. I don't think that so far the JP players have been all that impressed either. Looking at Motive stats, I think he's decent. Like he's not terrible, but I don't. He's kind of a confused unit for me because he's kind of designed to be like a bulky, kind of almost like a brawling missile unit, where his range is not top of the line. Like he's kind of designed to be in the middle of the battlefield. And I think where they were going there is so that, both your front line and back line potentially can take advantage of his follow-up attack. But I don't like my missile units to be up kind of in that AoE range. I don't think that's a good spot to be. Even though they did make him a little bit tankier, I don't think it's tanky enough that he's really, enough to be called like a bruiser, where, he can take, a bunch of hits. So I don't know. He's a good guild raid unit. I'll say that. He's got some chaining he can do.
So I honestly haven't seen much of his upside at all without him being next to Melnia. And if you take her out of the equation, Irvine has literally done nothing, in my opinion. I think his big thing that he's well known for at the moment is he's got that Bart's mechanic where his teammate buff will allow him to get an aura around himself that when your teammate attacks, he'll also attack. So from the perspective of like combining him with another missile unit, there's some really interesting potency there that since he doesn't move forward the same way Bart's does per se, and they do want to like maybe have that extra range to attack, there's more upside for him to utilize that follow-up attack at a safer distance. And he does have that unit imperil of 20. He's also got a missile imperil of 30. And so when you talk about like that unit imperil and that follow-up attack that he does, outside of that one kind of gimmicky mechanic, I don't know if there's anything to like about him. And I bring up Melnia as the counterpart here because obviously Dark isn't really set up to have any kind of dark missile. People will meme on Prompto and that's about it. But, when you talk about Melnia, she also has like things that complement him in terms of an AoE dispel ability. She's got her select 2 on her range. So when he has that decreased unit in peril, she'll follow up on that with this one. But outside of her, I just don't see like any other combination for Irvine. And his vision card, I think his vision card was a big swing and miss here. You had kind of hoped for a ranged unit vision card that had missile res pen. And that was kind of the theory at the time. And they went, in my opinion, super generic here with attack 50%, crit rate of 20, and acquired AP 60. Like, missile units don't need crit rate of 20. They are already natural crit monsters by and large. And even acquired AP, they kind of are too. This seems like beating a dead horse with what they want to give you. And attack 50%, again, those units typically have very low base attack. So this is like a huge swing and a miss, in my opinion, on like amplifying what the missile units typically want. I don't know. That's just my thought when I first saw this.
I agree. I think that it's almost like a better value for spear and dagger class that also have access to this card, at least in terms of like an attack and crit rate.
Absolutely.
I think that I agree. I think that it was kind of just as we talked about last time. He's kind of a complement to Melnia. He brings the imperils for her that she doesn't have. Melnia is, she's got all the dispels and the kind of the debuffs. He's bringing the imperils to kind of complete the twosome. But like Alaya can do the same thing. She doesn't have the follow-up attack, but I think that she does probably at least as good a damage, if not better, than Irvine.
Either way, I think unfortunately disappointing considering how flat Squall fell. That when you have 2 out of 3 characters on a collaboration as big as 8 in particular, kind of whiff that hard. I think that kind of kills a lot of momentum, which we were already running out of steam anyway.
One thing I will say though is that they just released the Trials of Reckoning for Final Fantasy VIII in JP, and they released like the Ragnarok like special item for the Final Fantasy VIII characters. And that item, I don't know if you want to bring it up, but basically that's kind of a fix for a couple of these units. The passives they're not allotted correctly here. Mm-hmm. How this works is basically the human killer and attack is for Irvine,
Okay.
That's kind of his upgrade. The second one is for Renoa, so she kind of gets the weakest upgrade here. And then the last one is for Squall. He gets a massive upgrade here. He gets a 20% physical damage. And then the second effect is kind of a boost to his honeycomb barrier ability, which it increases the mitigation on that one by another 10 to 30%. So
okay, that's big.
yeah, so I think it actually potentially turns Squall into a decent unit, and then definitely boosts Irvine's damage. For Renoa, it's not really doing all that much, but just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah.
Seems like they were trying to balance the unit through this item rather than going back and fixing the kit. So
yep, they've done that with a couple characters. They've made the item like a must-have for some units. And just a quick call out to your point on Irvine's damage. That Human Killer 15 is really important because that Human Killer does apply to that follow-up attack. And Human Killer is a major part of that modifier if you can stack those Man Killers. So that is when we're talking about him being that bread and butter, this is a nice way to kind of lean into that. Good call on bringing this up. Wouldn't have been a comprehensive discussion without it.
Interesting, after like the Final Fantasy V Trials item that we got, that was really kind of a big
for Lena,
mess,
huge mess. It was awful.
Yeah, it was good for Lena, but it was kind of garbage for everyone else.
That's my biggest regret of the recent Trials of Reckonings. Do you still play the content at all, Degen? Like, is that hard? Is that in the category of like guild raids for you of PvE content?
Oh, yeah.
Still do? Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
I came in 4th place on total high score on the last trial.
Good
so
for you.
I love trials, but I gotta say, I don't like the direction they're going with the items, how they're only good with the collab units. Like the old trials, we used to have like Ribbon, Titus Necklace, the Final Fantasy VII Bangle, whatever that's called, like good for
everything.
Everything, or Ribbon at least for evade units or whatever. And now, these things are maybe good for the collab units that they come out with and maybe not. So they don't seem as worthwhile to farm.
I've done 2 videos on this. These new Trials of Reckoning pieces of equipment are kind of awful, speaking frankly, as like what they offer you, because they not only are they only meant for the collab units, but the last 2, the Kefka cloth and the necklace, were only good for Kefka and for Lena. These are like awful items for the rest of the collab units. So like, I don't even want to say it's a good item for the collab units because that's being generous. It's good for one of the units, and even then, it's not best in slot. Like, it's debatable whether the Kefka clothes are like the best. No,
exactly.
It's, you know what I mean? Like,
and that's why I say maybe, because there's a good chance that something else is better out there.
I'm so soured on that, particularly because they shortened it from 2 weeks to 1 week. I used to love Trials of Reckoning and having those full 2 weeks to take my time and like, because there's a lot that goes into it in terms of like raising bravery, raising faith. There's some days you don't want to redo your whole Esper board 4 times because you have to do it before.
Exactly.
You have Guild Warlock and you got to do this and that, and shortening it to 1 week has absolutely killed my incentive. In addition to what JB brought up with the reincarnation system, where like you don't know how hard people are going to reincarnate some units that, in terms of like trying to reach high scores, it's just it's barriers every step of the way.
Those are some things that have really killed that mode for me too, because that was another one where I was always going for the high scores too. And yeah, the items aren't as good. The FF8 one, actually, for Squall, I think it is going to be his best in slot. And so we have a pretty big upgrade, but it does continue that trend where it's, just for the units, not the rest of the game. It's like, okay, 10/10 strike resistance. It's okay. It's kind of
that's the Mage's Habit, isn't it? The Mage's Habit armor. It's an armor. It's a cloth, but it's strike and slashes, and I think it's 7%. I don't know if it's 10%, but it could be.
Yeah, it's a small upgrade over that.
Yeah,
Mage's Habit.
We won't beat a dead horse over that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But and the only other addition here on the JP side of things more recently is Soul, who is a FFBE original character, one of the OG villains of the storyline. Very cool they decided to go that angle in bringing him in. I'll be honest, if you gave me a list of FFBE characters, he might not be top 5 for what I would have predicted. But certainly makes sense now that you see him, and very interesting character. Have you guys looked at him much at all?
I haven't looked at his kit or anything, but I'm right there with you where, like, if you would have asked me, like, what character do I think they would have collabed from FFBE, he wouldn't have even been on the list. I would have been thinking, like, Veritas or either one of their forms, or there's so many other characters, Lid and Jake and all those guys, and then all of a sudden, but he totally makes sense, so, like, I get it, but for some reason, he just was never even in the thought before. But yeah, as far as his kit, I've just heard about him being amazing, the best, like, fire thing ever made, but I haven't actually looked at it really myself.
He's good. I think that he's been getting a lot of play in JP because JP has been looking for something to solve Alaya and that's what he brings. The problem is that people are not just using him with Alaya. Like that's how stupidly powerful Ride of Alaya is. It's like any new unit that Gumi is putting out to kind of solve her, they're just like mixing Alaya with that unit, and that's becomes the new meta.
Right.
So I've found that pretty interesting. But basically, his thing is he gets crazy strike resistance. He gets an insane barrier, which she struggles with unless she's going one-on-one against a unit. She doesn't have like AoE barrier break, and then he also does very high unit resistance as well. You can get like, I don't know, like 50 or 60% or higher very easily. And then he gets like the select mechanic and dispel courage. So he's very much like a hard counter, where like in the past we might have expected this kind of kit on an earth unit, like a new earth mage. So I think it is very interesting they're putting this on a fire unit, kind of subverting that natural counter kind of gameplay that we've been used to for so long. He does have like poison too, which is very anti-courage as well. He's got a couple different like high chance poison abilities.
I was gonna say, anyone that just saw my face, yeah, we were looking at the limit break here, where this limit break is insane. Actually, wait, can we take a second? JB and I were going back and forth on this topic a while ago in terms of like power creep of the characters, and it's gonna be in the Q&A next week. But I remember looking at this character and being like, this is the new power creep. This is what we're comfortable with. Like 100% hit chance on the lowest ability, 7500 barrier with protect, 35% strike res to fire allies. So for those of you that haven't seen, his strike res can get anywhere from like 70 to 90 to 100% pretty easily. There's that 50% to inflict poison. Select 2, also break magic barriers, also decrease AP. His other ability, he's got 2 select 2 abilities. It's not just 1, it's 2. And one of them is a double hit. That's basically AoE Dispel Courage here. And then the limit break, like look at this limit break here. It's this glorious diamond AoE, Dispel Shell, another AoE Dispel Courage, 67% poison chance, 50 healing power down, and a 20, like this is insanity for what they've done for this character. And that's kind of my fear of him being the first of many when we talk about the Ashen Warriors that they kind of hyped up. I'm like, dude, are all of these characters going to be like this? Like that's a tough pill to swallow. But we'll save that for another time, I'm sure, in terms of the back and forth.
And I know that the number of people that are looking ahead now to Saul and then skipping Alaya or using that as their reason to skip Alaya has been more than a few. I don't know. I mean, like I said, people are still using Alaya all the time in JP. It's they're just adding him into that team, and that's what's come out of it. But he's very good. I'm glad that I love that first season of FFBE. He was the main big bad villain out of that. Pull up his vision card because the artwork really blew me away.
They did a great job with this.
As like a big FFBE player and fan, I love this original OG FFBE team, Rain, Fina, Laswell, kind of going up against the boss there.
It's glorious.
I love it. So looking forward to this card too.
Me too. Yeah, this is you know what? Honestly, I like it for no other reason. We talked about this when they introduced job-based division cards. They needed to really roll out a bunch of them with agility, AOE res, and unit res. And so that might seem kind of redundant, but the more of these you get, the more iterations of parties you can create. And so I love that we're getting another 15% agility card. I love that it's got the elemental chain res, which is kind of like a new damage mitigation mechanic. I don't know, more of them. I'm happy with it. For those of you that don't know, I left VIP to its kind of like more casual guild, which we call I'm free to play, which was true for like a month and a half. It's like still kind of true. I'll be honest, that guild is we actually don't spend. I do not as much. Not as much as I did. JB never established that. We are far decreased, but yeah, we've had some fun like queuing up with a couple guilds that I never thought I'd get to see. And you and I had a guild match yesterday that I can't recall the score. Was it 90 to
69, I believe.
Nice.
Actually, yeah. Blessed is WOTV stats. We can actually pull it up here, and I think we're in the. Oh, here we are. I'm free to play.
Hail Hydra.
Yeah, yeah, 90 to 69. That was I mean, it's we just came out with a new Dark Wall too, so that's tough to go against. But always fun to see. I know when we played, someone had called you out in particular, like, oh, this is Degen's guild. Like, who's gonna get to hit him? Someone got to you before I did.
I didn't even see who hit me. I attacked super late because I was really busy yesterday. And I did get 3 stars on someone. I was actually really happy. I hit a fresh guy. It was one of your sub leaders, and I took him out with my Earth team.
I'll be honest.
I was like,
that is quite the achievement. This new Dark Wall we have at the moment is no slouch.
Yeah, It was so late too. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't even watch the fight. I skipped it because I also assumed I was gonna get crushed. I was like, I can't. My heart can't handle this right now. I'm just gonna skip my loss. But I got 3, and I was like, oh my god, I got 3 on these guys. I'll take that.
That is awesome. Oh yeah, it's an Urgent's team. Yeah, Urgent's a huge vet of the game. That's a very high quality win over that team. Good stuff, man. How have you been running with Earth for a while now? Do you like this team? You like that Earth team?
I just love Bradley, and I just, I did go and built him up and Dialdo together. So I use them on my attack. I am using Dark on my defense. But yeah, I've just been using, I don't really have a method. We don't run walls or anything. We just run whatever we find fun in our guild. And so that's why I'm doing Earth still for attack. But I don't really have a reason other than just really liking Bradley as a character. Same thing when he came out in FFBE. I used him nonstop for like a solid year.
Good stuff.
That Earth team is great, man. Dialdo is amazing, especially now that Alaya is here. He can tank her very well.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Renoa too. So I'll probably keep playing with Earth at the time. Melnia, probably gonna have to skip her, unfortunately, but maybe I can get her with whatever.
Honestly, skip her and save that viz for her vision card. That vision card is really good.
Oh yeah.
Well, good.
I've heard.
You made a good investment in Earth anyway. That element is eating good right now.
Yeah, so. It's been fun.
Good stuff. All right. Well, we do have some Q&A, but we unfortunately are a little bit out of time at the moment, but we'll cover those next week instead. We wanted to prioritize, some of the more meta discussions with Alaya and the implications, and obviously go through guild raid and talk about a little more PvE this week than PvP. But a huge thanks to Degen for coming on. Hopefully get to have you again. I mean, there's no reason not to. We love having special guests, and certainly nice to, like I said at the beginning, interact with you one-on-one like this again. Any closing thoughts either, JB?
Yeah, huge thanks to coming out. It was fun just kind of talking about the game and seeing your perspective on the PvE stuff. So yeah, definitely come back and join us again in the future.
Yeah, well, thanks very much for having me. I appreciate the invite and everything like that. And I just appreciate you guys in general. The content you guys make is so good. And it's a game that, we've seen a lot of content creators for this game dwindle away. And you guys are 2 of the most helpful ones we've ever had in the game too. Like, your videos and guides and everything are just so good. I know you've helped me, you've helped my guild, and I'm sure you've helped probably most other guilds out there in some way. So yeah, I'm sure we all appreciate you guys doing what you do. So keep that up.
Thanks,
Don't leave us.
We'll definitely try.
Don't leave us.
I'm a lifer for this game.
Me too.
I'm here till end of service.
I am too, for sure. I'm hoping. I keep making empty promises, like, oh, I'm going to do more content, and it still ends up being the same grind of character reviews. But there's still so much more I want to do. It's just haven't had the time. We'll get around to it. That's it for now, at least in the meantime. Thanks again for watching, everybody. Obviously looking forward to next week and seeing what else the Road to Worldwide has in store for us. But that's it for now. Have a good week, and we'll talk to y'all soon.